5G is something which is very versatile, that it touches so many domains. It's not only pure 5G on your device that you have in your pocket. It's not only uploading videos on TikTok. It's not only consuming some videos from any streaming site. It's also not only connecting with friends or retrieving some information somewhere. Connecting tomorrow means that much more than only our mobile devices are connected. And that's something that a lot of people probably cannot even imagine for the moment, how many devices have to be connected and also can be connected, and especially also will be connected in the future. Now, there is one topic which heavily relies on a good connectivity, which is autonomous driving. Autonomous driving is something which is quite a lot making us fantasize, making us rave kind of about the future. When I was a little bit younger, I remember that we were thinking about cars which were flying, for example. Cars which were doing everything by themselves. Now it's 2021, and still we have not really deployed any self-driving cars. My camera has, I think, my car that I'm driving has, I think, 8 cameras around. It's more or less ready for semi-autonomous driving, and I could install a software update on it so that it would drive me more or less autonomously. But still, it's not ready yet for prime time, but this will come very quickly as well. I had a very nice discussion recently with my daughter. She's 7 years old. My son, he's almost 2 years old now. I didn't have a discussion with him about this, but at least with my daughter. And I told to her when she said, I like to drive cars. I would like to drive cars when I'm older. And especially my 2-year-old boy, he likes to sit in my car, takes the steering wheel and making brum brum, which first of all is something about the past. Cars will not make any more brum brum in the future. But especially I told to my daughter, when you are 18 years old, and especially when your brother is 18 years old, I'm pretty convinced that neither of you will anymore make a classic driver's license. You will not anymore be in the situation that you're going to drive yourself with a car. For my daughter, 7 years, I'm not so sure, but for my son, I'm pretty sure that this will happen because they will be the risk factors in the traffic. Machines will be better. Artificial intelligence will be better to make sure that no accidents will happen. And therefore, these people, our children, they will not have a life anymore as we had it. They will be driven by artificial intelligence. This, I think, I can say I'm convinced about. Now, I'm very happy that we are going to have people who are extremely qualified to discuss with me about exactly this topic. We have a panel discussion coming up about transforming mobility. And I'm very happy to welcome on stage with me no one less than Christian Micas, Senior Policy Officer from the European Commission from Belgium. Please have a seat. Armin Gräter from the BMW Group. And last but not least, Dirk Hetzer, Senior Expert Business Innovation from the 5G GrowCo Cross-Border Project, T-Systems International, Germany. Thank you very much to all of you for being here with us today here. I think you have the answers to the questions that most likely each and every one of us has and that we're going to discuss just in a few. Just for all those who are connected virtually, but also, of course, those who are in the room here, feel free to ask your questions. We are more than happy to reply to your questions during the question and answer sessions here. We don't have anymore this classic and traditional microphones. Just simply connect to the event website and they will have the possibility to ask your questions. They're going to be transmitted right away to me. Connectivity, it works. Trust me, it really works. But nevertheless, Christian, what about a short introduction about yourself?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Peter. I'm very grateful to the government of Luxembourg for the organization of this conference, and in particular, this panel on how new technologies will transform mobility. Indeed, digital, as we have seen during the pandemic crisis has been very important in order to ensure continuity in our daily lives for business or for private life. And digital sector is expected also to play a critical role in the economic recovery and in the contribution to a climate neutral, circular and low emission economy. When it comes to digital and to the, in particular, the digital and green transformation of mobility, I would say there are four challenges ahead of us. The first one is enabling connected and automated mobility. The second one is the development of mobility as a service. The third one is the pooling and exchanging of data. And the third one is the contribution to low emission. So I will make a short presentation to take you through how the different strands of EU policies are contributing to this objective. And in particular, I will focus on how 5G will contribute to this objective. So there are two main strands of EU policies that will contribute to the digital and green transformation of the mobility system. The first one is the path to the digital decade. This has been presented by the Commission 3 weeks ago as part of President von der Leyen's speech on the State of the Union. And basically, it is a governance framework to achieve a vision set by the European Commission as part of the 2030 Digital Compass. I will mention few of the connectivity targets that have been set for this purpose. The first one is we want to have, by 2030, 5G everywhere, covering all populated areas, but also all transport paths with the right level of connectivity to ensure connected and automated mobility. The second one is the interim target of having uninterrupted coverage of the major transport paths by 2025. This was set already in the 2016 5G action plan, and this remains valid as such. So a third important element is the contribution of the multi-country projects as a way to build the community, and in particular, the building of 5G corridors on both sides of the border. Another important strand of EU policy in the field is the smart and sustainable mobility strategies. It lays for the transport system the foundation for its digital and green transformation. I will mention at least two important targets in this context. It's by 2030, the large-scale deployment of automated mobility, and it will be, believe me, connected as well. And by 2030, the multimodal trans-European transport network equipped with high-speed connectivity. I will then focus now on an important objective, that is the deployment of 5G corridors. So the vision is, as I said, 5G as a key enabler of connected and automated mobility. We believe that the private investment will lead this development, however, with public funding, in particular in economically challenging areas, and in particular in cross-border areas. The map you can see here on this screen is the map of 5G corridors that relies on the trans-European network that will run across 26,000 kilometers throughout the EU, including 49 intra-EU borders. And believe me, ensuring business continuity across a border is extremely challenging, as we'll hear from two other panelists. In order to prepare for the large-scale deployment, the Commission, as part of the Horizon 2020 program, and in the context of the 5G public-private partnership, has launched a number of cross-border trial projects that are covering different parts of intra-EU borders with a view to test solutions for connected and automated mobility use cases enabled by 5G. What will come next, and actually towards the end of the year, is the implementation of the Connecting Europe Facility program. It will cover the 21-27 period, with practically for 5G corridors, 1 billion funding, and the main emphasis of this support will be, over the first 3 years at least, on support to financial deployment in cross-border areas. And last but not least, of course, we want to ensure a blending and coordination with the other EU instruments, in particular the recovery facilities, but other EU instruments. I will stop here, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Christian. Now you're representing more, of course, the legislator in Europe. Armin, you as the Director for Government Affairs Europe, Digitalisation and Automated Driving from the BMW Group, you're representing more the car manufacturers. Tell us a little bit more about your vision and your ideas.
Thank you very much. The vision from the car manufacturing point of view is one thing I can explain here today, but I have also another hat, let's say, with me, which is leading the European CCAM partnership for the Horizon Europe program of the European Commission. So we will be spending 1 billion euros within the next 10 years in the Horizon Europe program for connected, cooperative, automated mobility. And I'm having the honor to lead this partnership. So with this said, we have not only a view of the European manufacturers. The BMW CEO at the moment is ASEA president, so I'm supporting him in this role as well. But also the long-term vision of the air truck community, which supports also the European Commission in long-term research areas. So there's a very broad view of all stakeholders included in what I'm explaining just now, and I will give some examples from the manufacturing industry. This is an example how we think in the future, let's say even beyond 2030, data sharing patterns between infrastructure and vehicles will happen. So this is already my first point. It will not happen without infrastructure. What we are seeing just today is the big challenge of the Fit for 55 program for electromobility, with building up the infrastructure for electric charging. And we will see exactly, I must say, the same challenge to really build up also infrastructure for automated driving, which is digitalizing digital twins of the road, of traffic lights, of changing traffic signs and all this stuff around roads. So this is an important thing to be a basis for really autonomy in vehicles. We see today that automated valet parking, and this is now an example from the automotive industry, has been presented at the IAA in Munich before last week. And it was seen that it's very, very comfortable already, and these cars even don't have any sensors included, so it was completely done by the infrastructure, by cameras, by radars of the parking lot. And this will come to life in the next 12 to 24 months from many manufacturers now. So parking is the first step to automation. It will be driverless, and it will give a lot of time and comfort to the drivers. And this is so it starts with very low speed, and it will end with it will not end with very high speeds, but it starts also with high speeds. But then it's much easier to do it because it's on highways, and highways don't have pedestrians and cyclists, so the traffic is much easier to be handled. So this is the idea which I like to give to you. We have two streams of development. One is approaching the speed of cars, which is highway, and one is approaching the complexity of the traffic. And to combine both will be a very long trip to do, and it will not be finished by 2030, obviously. So your question, if your children don't need to make a driver license, sorry, I don't think so. They will need to do it still. That's again the manufacturing side.
Okay, you're anticipating already the question that I wanted to have, because I wanted to ask you three, actually your best guess, when we finally can sit in the car and sip our coffee in the car without having to do anything anymore. So it's not by 2030. I think we can agree on this, or 2030 should be unrealistic, isn't it?
Well, what we are seeing is, and what we are planning with the CCAM partnership, is to have large-scale demonstrations in 2030, which will run in public with customers, with business models behind it. So it's the start of a deployment, yes. And it will be hopefully in 30 cities of Europe. So it will be taking place in reality, but a large-scale industrialized solution which gives money to the investment maybe needs some more time, but could also happen already in this time frame when it comes to inner city traffic. So it will very much depend on what you look at. If you think of driving from A to B anywhere in the world, your children need a driver license. But well, if you really tackle the traffic problems of today in the cities, this will start in 10 years, definitely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Armin.
Yes, okay, we can leave it with this.
Dirk, maybe a couple of words also, because you're representing as being a senior expert for business innovation from the 5G GroKo cross-border project, T-Systems International Germany. You're representing more kind of the person who is setting up the infrastructure that all the car manufacturers are docking into. Just a couple of words about this.
Thank you for the nice invitation. Yeah. I'm representing here the project 5G GroKo as a technical manager. And in this project, we will show how today already in dedicated infrastructure environments, such a 5G application will work. The idea behind is to select at least 3 use cases. It's in our case the teleoperation, it's HD mapping update, and it's cooperative collision avoidance. And we can show these use cases in a cross-border environment, how such solution look like if you have to deal with different operators, especially in border environments. This is a part of the frame with sister projects sponsored by the European Commission. It's together with the project 5G Mobix, 5G Carmen. And the idea behind is to show how the technical solution looks like to have this new features from 5G network slicing, 5G mobile edge computing, and other 5G facilities in combination for this cross-border environments. And especially in 2 weeks' time, we will show this in a big demonstration in the Schengen area, and together with our friends from Orange, from Post Luxembourg, we are on a very good way to say, okay, the technical solutions are available, but of course, on the other side, there is still many things to do to come from such a pilot infrastructure to real products. Yeah? It's not a real final product for this. We see that there are many, let's say, challenges for 5G in these environments. And it means, on one side, we have many new opportunities from operator side. We have to be open for our customer, for big clients like OEMs and other customers, to give real deep inside knowledge from our network to our customers. But on the other side, it's also very important that the customer itself is more responsible in the future for the work he is doing in his part of the network. Yeah? He is more or less, let's say in brackets, owning his slice, his part of the network, and he is also responsible for this part. And this is a total utter interoperation between network operator and customer in the network, because we have to find other solutions how to deal with these issues. Yeah? We have to come to real quality of service between different operators. We need new roaming approach, new roaming agreements, for instance. And on the other side, of course, there are many technical things also to be solved, and especially in the border, we have to go for synchronization between the networks. We have to go for lawful interception questions, and so we can show that it's possible to deal with this, but we also know that there are still many work to do.
So 2 takeaways already that I see when it comes now to this discussion. First of all, contrary to what most people see today, where the car manufacturers are trying to put as many sensors in their car, it becomes quite obvious that it's more the future probably that the infrastructure around is guiding the cars without that the car have to be fully equipped with different sensors, which will make it easier, of course, for the car manufacturers. The second thing is, of course, that we need to build up this whole infrastructure also on a global scale, or at least a European scale. Question to maybe Armin and Dirk. How do you see this cooperation? How do you work together in making sure that the interoperability between car manufacturers and also the providers of the 5G technology, of the maps, etc., how can you make sure that this works, establishing standards? Maybe Armin first.
Absolutely. This is one key challenge for the future. And what we are seeing today is that all technical electronic systems based on same standards, but there are specific standards for car industry and for infrastructure industry, and they, let's say, went into different directions. And now we need to bring them together again, for example, on the issue of functional safety. So what are the errors allowed in software, or what are the failure rates of hardware? This needs to be aligned very much so that the infrastructure can trust the signals of the car, and the car can trust the signals of the infrastructure. And this is all about technical trust, let's say. This is very important. And the first step for that, and that's why I'm in the CCAM partnership, is to build the trust between the people who are building this. And this is key to have all sectors in one place and to get them together to make the research work, that standards will be more common than in the past.
Mm-hmm. Dirk.
Yeah, of course, I can fully underline these statements. And one of the main targets for our project, of course, is to bring the results in standardization. Only if we have these results as part of the standard, this will survive. Yeah? To show that something is technically possible, it's only a first small step. The real big step is then to bring this to a standard and to bring this to a global solution. Any other way will not work and decide. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Question maybe for Christian. First of all, how you as the regulator or legislator, how can you jump in and make sure that really all the different actors are going in the same direction and that we're going to have a unique standard? Considering also the fact that Europe is also not an island. A lot of car manufacturers come from Asia, from America. There are main actors which are not in Europe. How can you as a European Commission impose yourself and create rules which are binding for everyone?
Thank you, Peter. Well, first of all, as raised by Dirk, one of the purposes of this Horizon 2020 cross-border trial project is precisely to contribute to the standardization effort as 3GPP. So that way, this will endorse some of the European, I would say, vision and approach to the sector. Another important element to take into consideration, and this is the reason why we are supporting the financial deployment of 5G corridors with a focus on cross-border areas, is we want to have a coordinated deployment. We want to have harmonized solutions with the view to ensure a truly pan-European journey across Europe. Imagine in the case of Luxembourg, in a matter of 100 kilometers, you can go across several intra-EU borders, and it's important to ensure business continuity for not only for vehicles, but also for the passengers. This is something we have not mentioned, but actually 5G corridors will also enable to provide connectivities to passengers that will be in the future in driverless cars. So it will be perhaps a possibility to develop, for instance, mobile office applications, but also the provision of connectivity to train passengers. This is something we have not mentioned so far, but it's an important component of this vision of deployment of 5G corridors. It is also to support the provision of connectivities for digital rail operations enabled by 5G, but also for the provision of connectivities to high-speed train. Imagine a high-speed train is like a village with 500, 800 people that are, moving across at the speed of 300 kilometers. And here, in that respect, so there is a concept so-called a gigabit train, and it's also quite challenging, but an important objective of the European Commission.
Thank you very much, Christian. Just connecting to this, you mentioned also the 5G corridors. And I just see that we have a question from Maxime Flamand coming in, who asked, who are the 5G corridors, how are the 5G corridors selected? How can new corridors be added in the foreseeable future?
Well, the mechanics of connecting a Europe facility is that it will rely on initiative and proposals that will be submitted by private consortia, possibly with the participation of the states. And it will first have to start on the basis of a number of corridors that has been identified by the member state in the Connecting Europe Facility program. And these corridors, they cover about 26,000 kilometers and encompasses 49 intra-EU borders. And the approach is to ensure that by focusing on cross-border corridors, we will focus on the critical bricks, which will enable then further extension across the national territories, across national sections of corridors, enabling to connect several cross-border sections of 5G corridors.
Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe a question which is more kind of almost a philosophical question or a socio-economic question. We're going to see in the future quite a lot of automated driving, but not only that people own the cars, but also car sharing, kind of taxi services. We have been discussing already when we prepared for this session that very often, today at least, people choose where they live according to the possibility to have access to public transportation. In the future, in 10, 15 years, this might be different, because if you are living in a rural area, there might be the possibility that you don't need to rely so much anymore on public transportation, but rather to have the possibility to order your shuttle, to have your autonomous car driving. Do you see that this might be also in the future a difference between those people who can afford to have this flexibility, have this autonomous cars driving, and those who need to rely on the autonomous public transportations?
Maybe I don't answer directly to this question, because you would also ask the public transport providers this question, which I cannot represent here. But and they are unfortunately not so well represented in the CCAM partnership, which I invite them to please join the partnership. We need you, because only having public and private mobility providers in one room, we can find the solutions for the future. And it's very clear that, as we have heard from also Deloitte, that 5G and broadband connectivity for all is a societal target, and also from Xavier Bettel, this is a reality in the future for mobility as well. That's very clear. And I think there's a big opportunity of the future that, depending on how you are willing to shape the future, you will be a public transport provider to deliver also the rural areas, or there are private offerers like Uber who will go into the cities more. So it's depending on the city and on the, let's say, dynamics of the organizations who are part of the game, which role they take over. So maybe some OEMs will also be mobility providers in the future, and some cities will have it on their own hands. So it will depend on the structures and on the dynamics of the market at last, and on the regulation framework which we need for that, because if you do it like, well, having the simple flow of market forces only, maybe this is not the best solution for Europe, as we learned from the past, from many other things like industrialization and so on. So the combination of dynamic players in both public and private sectors and a good regulation framework will make the solution.
Makes perfect sense. Armin, I have a question from you, which was coming in from Maxime Flamand as well, which is kind of linked also to what we just discussed now. It's about automated wallet parking use. Maxime is asking, what connectivity is needed for the automated wallet parking use case? What does 5G brings to you that other radios do not have?
So thanks, Maxime, for this question. I know you very well, and it's a good question indeed. And I just brought the example of automated valet parking, which is possible to be done completely by the car. It's also possible to be done completely by the infrastructure. And I think the future solutions are having the best balance for each use case between infrastructure investment and car technology. I think the outcome will be that there will be no solutions of having only infrastructure or only car technology, but what the perfect mix is for automated valet parking depends on the use case. For example, if you have a big CinemaScope center and you have a flat area of parking cars on the flat ground with long distances, maybe it's better to have it in the car. But if you have a very narrow parking lot in the city, maybe it's better to do it in the infrastructure. So there will be many solutions, and that's why these standards are so important, to have a common base of making this balance in each use case differently.
Makes perfect sense. Dirk, question for you also, more now from the time perspective. I think everybody is eager also to know a little bit, when does it really start still? I know it's a question which is almost impossible to answer, but maybe looking at the crystal ball, what time frame do you see so that we have at least the infrastructure ready so that the car manufacturers can dock into this infrastructure?
Yeah, of course, I have also not a crystal ball, but my opinion is that we need in next years to set up the real 5G standalone solution and to deploy different network slices. And at the end of the day, this will take more or less 2-3 years to start with this implementation, so that the network itself will be ready in the second half of the 20s, I would guess.
Interesting question that I was asking myself. You mentioned already before mapping. I mean, mapping is something which is very important, to have the GPS coordinates, everything ready. Now, if we talk about mapping, then everybody thinks probably about Google Maps. Some might also think about Apple Maps. There are also other open world maps, etc. What technology are we speaking here about? Is it, again, something proprietary, or are we having to rely on Google, on Apple, or on the other providers who have collected already this geodata?
Yeah. I can give you some examples from our HD mapping project activities. And of course, we will go for very detailed maps on this size. That means very high precise mapping solutions. And it means to come below 10 centimeter, really to drive in a lane. And of course, the data volume you have to deal with this is 10 times, 100 times higher than a standard Google map. And for these reasons, we also are working on solutions for precise positioning. This is combined with the mapping issue. And also in this way, we will go for standard approaches. Yeah? We have dedicated technical solution already available, but the next good step is then to include this in 5G standard procedures. Yeah?
Okay. May I add something?
Quickly, because we need to wrap up now, but yeah, go ahead.
This is important, and it also refers to Maxim's question. Having a high definition map in real time is the clear precondition for any autonomous driving. This is only, I can now talk an hour about the technical background, but this is really key and needs to be understood also in the political arena. I think it's very clear to you, and these high definition maps are coming now from other organizations like Telecom or here, and maybe we also need in the future an official publicly available high-definition map from the European organizations.
Christian, last word for your side. Are there initiatives from the European institutions to provide such maps, to support it, to have a European product here?
Yes, so indeed, as you certainly all aware, the Commission is in the final step of preparation of the Data Act that will aim at ensuring and setting the regulatory and legal conditions for the exchanging and pooling of data. This vision, when it comes to the mobility data ecosystem, will be enabled, and this is something I haven't mentioned, by the integration of the so-called 5G corridors with the edge nodes that will be multi-service, and their integration with the European Federation of Cloud. And the Commission is contributing currently to supporting this deployment on the basis of, in particular, CEF and the Digital European Program that will ensure capacity building in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christian. Thank you very much, Armin. Thank you very much, Dirk. Unfortunately, I have to cut it short here. It could be for the next 2 hours. I think we had enough topics, but the next speaker is already in the starting blocks, and I think we are connecting almost seamlessly now, because the next presentation will be from Christoph Klenner, the co-founder and partner of Helios Technologies from Belgium. And Christoph is going to speak about new services for travel and for tourism. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome and a very big applause, virtually and on site here, for Christoph Klenner, please.
Wonderful. Thank you, Peter. You're running only 3 minutes behind. Wow, that is, I think, a new world record.
3 minutes. 3 minutes in autonomous driving is a lot.
I know, but not in conferences. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning still. It's been a long morning. I've learned a lot because I'm not used to coming to telecom conferences, so this is quite a new area for me. Perhaps just a few words of introduction about myself. Christoph Klenner. I am co-founder of Helios Technologies, a company that we founded 2 years ago in Belgium, which is focused on developing immersive experiences for the tourism economy for visitors. We have gone from a startup to a scale-up, and basically what we do is we use augmented reality technology to bring historical sites and events, but for instance also items from pop culture back to life. Boo. By doing this, we can turn any city, any museum into a living space, into a space where history comes to life and where the visitor experience, rather than be perhaps something a little bit dull, a little bit stuffy, can become visual, auditive, informative, and above all, emotional. And research has shown that when an experience that you have in a location becomes emotional, the experience becomes much deeper, and the person retains it for much longer. A couple of metrics. This was actually our very, very first 3D model that we have developed of a Roman temple, which from the 3rd century, and we brought it to life. There's nothing of it left. The archaeologists more or less know where it was standing, and we have recreated it digitally. That was part of our proof of concept in the first city where we went live. We are now live or about to go live in 6 locations. COVID has dictated that we were restrained to developing this in Belgium. We are ready to go abroad. Of course, we have an ambition to go to first the neighboring countries, and then gradually roll out across Europe and beyond. We have 10 plus locations at the moment in the pipeline. We were selected as one of 10 promising startups by the leading Belgian incubator, IMEC, in 2020. And we have, and this is actually, come to think of it, we have 2 partnerships with academic institutions in Belgium, notably one with a university, one of the leading universities of applied sciences, who are essentially doing research into how technologies such as augmented reality can improve the tourism economy, the visitor economy. Today's visitors demand a whole range of things. I think I could divide them into 2 buckets. One is a plethora of information, real-time information, with the possibility to consult live availability, for example, of transport options, of accommodation options, but also, the full transactional path. So to make real-time bookings of transportation, but also of museum visits, and pay anywhere using any available payment method. In the second bucket, I think it's more the experience bucket. Travelers and tourists are increasingly eager to have access to rich graphic content when they are on the move. And what we start to realize is that local governments, and it is very, very difficult, it's a big challenge to deal with local governments and kind of pull them into this digital age. But some smart ones are starting to realize that if they stand out, if they give their visitors an unforgettable experience by, bringing them to a location, showing them in an interesting way what is there, and using technology to enhance that experience, and what we do then is a variety of things, but we can bring, history back to life and make the experience better, but also make sure that that location really stands out on the map. So we're able to produce, very advanced content and make it available to travelers in any location, provided, of course, we have the connectivity that is needed to deliver this type of content. Now, there are a number of players in this arena. Virtual reality and augmented reality are offered, or these experiences are offered by a number of providers. But what makes us unique is that we take that, that's the party piece of our platform, but we combine it with all of the other elements of a typical tourist visit. We offer city tours. We offer easy-to-use multimedia guides for museums on the smartphone, so no need for expensive physical audio guides. We provide information on restaurants, bars, shops that offer local products. And we have a full transactional capability. We didn't develop that ourselves. We're working with two partners, one in the area of fulfillment of museum and excursion ticketing, and one French scale-up, which is quite advanced in the area of providing an electronic point-of-sale system for restaurants and bars. So through our app, we can offer the visitor who is already on location visibility on restaurant and bar options, but also the possibility to reserve a table, to consult the digital menu, to order through the app, and to perform the payment. Now, our app is live in a number of cities, and as we grow the number of locations, we of course rely increasingly on enabling complex functionality and storing heavy visual content in the cloud and allowing the user's app to access that content on location. As regards augmented reality in particular, the capabilities of smartphones keep improving, and the ability of the digital design tools that we use to develop our digital models keeps improving as well, of course. So what we want, from this industry is that the pace of evolution of the user's device and its capabilities, the pace of evolution of the design tools that we use to develop ever better and better looking digital models, and the pace of evolution of the infrastructure, they keep advancing in tune with each other. We want to ensure that mobile networks keep up with the pace, to ensure that the quality content that we are today already able, but will be much more able tomorrow to deliver to the end user, can be continued to be delivered. There was talk a little bit earlier about the digital divide, which I think is a very pertinent problem. Now, of course, the digital divide when it comes to availability of networks, availability of the last mile to the end user, that's something beyond our control. But I think in a way we want to play a role in terms of narrowing that digital divide. We often get the question from local governments, what do we do with our older visitors, elderly visitors who are not really able to use an app appropriately? And so we want to work with them. We have an ambition to work with them to make the experience as user-friendly as possible, to provide guidance to the user. And that often comes, it seems almost contradictory, but often our app in a city will come with a flyer that explains how to use it. But I think, if there's no crime in that, in combining digital and analog technology, if it helps bring people on board with the fast-paced digital evolution that we live in. We're based in Belgium. Belgium is known to probably most of you as quite a complicated country when it comes to government. We are experiencing that firsthand. We're facing that. So we are always, of course, looking for new ecosystems in order to further advance our technology and our services. So I'm actually very glad to be here in Luxembourg, a country which I've always known to be at the forefront of digital evolution. Because the challenge we are facing is that whereas in the US, in China, companies have the ability to really scale to the extent that they become leaders in their field, they become eventually unicorns. I think in Europe we still face too many barriers when it comes to that. We rely on often the mercy of local, regional, national governments to be able to do something in a niche. And what we can't make them understand is that if they backed off a little bit, we could do more and we could actually grow faster, whilst sticking to all the rules that are in place. And I think I was very glad to hear your Prime Minister speak this morning about the Luxembourg government having the ambition, not to impose rules, not to throttle business, but actually to be a partner. And we are open, and I look forward to discussing perhaps later on whether there are opportunities for us to do some interesting things with the Luxembourg government and with the ecosystem here in order to test new features, deploy new services, and maybe open up in one or more locations in Luxembourg in the not too distant future. I'll keep it to that. I'll wrap up here. Thanks again very much for the invitation, and I'm happy to continue the dialogue, and my contact details are here in case you want to get in touch or come and speak to me after the session. Thanks again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Christoph. I'm not going to let you go so easily because I think there are still a couple of questions which are open here. Maybe a short remark from my side. I find it extremely interesting also because I have a background in 3D, augmented reality, virtual reality was always a point of interest for me. And I see here a very clear application. I mean, traveling is something that everybody is marveling around. Now, you showed a couple of examples, especially also where someone was holding up a smartphone and could see augmented reality here. I believe that this can change quite a lot over the next years by new devices. What kind of devices do you see on the horizon to make this kind of transparent experience for everyone, where we don't need to have our smartphone holding it somewhere?
That's a very good question, thank you. Well, I think what we've seen over the last months is already kind of a new stage in development of smartphones becoming unfoldable, having a more comfortable user experience, because the truth is you will always have the challenge, combining something that's handheld that you can carry in your pocket with having a good user experience. And it's pointless to have great graphics if it's on a small screen. I mean, we will probably in the not too distant future find ourselves in a place where we won't have a physical device anymore, or for certain features and applications we will be able to, project imagery, all that sort of thing. We are, prepared for that. We're ready for that. We're of course device agnostic. We're working hard to keep up with the pace. So new devices coming out, we're rapid to update our technology to be able to run on those devices. Very, very excited about the future of how we're going to consume digital data and digital information, and in particular visuals. I think it might still be on physical devices, but the world is out there in terms of other media where we will consume this type of information and data and visuals.
I remember that in 2014, 2015, most of the people were speaking about Google Glass. Google had released their prototype. It was kind of a prototype, to be honest, of the Google Glass. I remember myself being in 2014 in Ireland in the Google headquarters, trying myself the Google Glass, being quite impressed by what it could do, and also a little bit underwhelmed what it couldn't do, actually. If you look at Microsoft, the HoloDesk or HoloLens, they have more an industrial application, but there are also other rumors on the horizon, like, for example, Apple might get ready their augmented reality glass. What do you think will be the time frame for such devices to appear, and what is your best guess what will be the front runner actually for these applications where we really say, okay, now we can really use it?
Oh. In terms of time frame, I don't have the answer, and that's certainly not my area of expertise. Our job is to remain agile and to keep up with hardware developments or kind of hardware morphing into something else. When it comes to who will be the front runner, I think we've seen a lot of trials perhaps fail or not being adopted because they either were too early, as we often see in technology, that you have a great idea but the time is not ripe for it. I think that certainly plays a role. On the other hand, it's maybe just too cumbersome to take out glasses. It's it's not a natural thing. I think any application that will have worldwide and society-wide adoption has to be something that comes naturally, that comes intuitively. So I think we'll get there with small steps, and it won't be something dropped on us and we all think, wow, that's it. It will come, we'll reach a tipping point where we'll have some kind of medium which will come naturally, and that'll be a game changer, I'm quite sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. I think we could speak also about this topic much more, about graphics, real-time graphics. Would it make sense more to travel really, or to have study travels, for example, just in a virtual area? You cannot lie on the beach just wearing a headset. That doesn't work. You will not get 10, that's for sure. So I think a very warm applause also for you, for your insights. Thank you very much, Christoph. Now, just if you're going to travel, and you're going to travel in person, you're going to lie on the beach, and you're going to have a terrible sunburn, what do you need? Probably a doctor. Now, you're going to be on site somewhere, you don't speak necessarily the language of the doctor, so what you need then? Telemedicine. And that's also an amazing opportunity also for 5G, for connections and here and there. And I have two people now with me that I would like to discuss exactly this topic. First of all, Zohar Zinger, Head of Telemedicine Department from Clalit Health Services from Israel. Welcome, Zohar. And then Dermo Doyle, Chief Executive Officer, co-founder of DinAccurate from Luxembourg. Welcome, and please have a seat. Zohar, may I ask you just to introduce yourself a little bit, what you're doing and what your main focus in your work is?
Hi, thank you everyone. So my name is Zohar Zinger, I'm from Israel. I work in the organization called Clalit Health Services, which is the biggest HMO in Israel and the second largest in the world. And my job is to be in charge on all the telemedicine services and eHealth services for our customers. We have more than 4.5 million customers in the HMO, and also we have 14 hospitals. So what we try to do is to give our customers and our patients ways to talk to their doctors or to manage all their health issues as much as possible in digital ways. So it will be more easy for them to manage their health and everything they need. And it's quite challenging because we have so many different people, population and people that living far away or old people. So we've got to do all of this stuff to make everyone happy and healthy, of course.
Makes perfect sense. Dermo, can you tell me a little bit more about DinAccurate, what DinAccurate is doing?
Absolutely, it'll be a pleasure, Peter. So DinAccurate is an artificial intelligence that was developed by the Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology. I'm super privileged to be able to bring to the market. And what it does is it provides what we call semantic interoperability. And to put it simply, that means that machines can derive meaning from what they see, or what they're reading, we could say in machine terms, because it's one thing to transfer data. It's quite another thing for a system to comprehend, in a machine way, what that data is. So one example could be in one health terminology, I might report that I have a chest pain, and on my record it will say, Dermot had chest pain. But in another part of the health system, it might say, the symptom was pain of truncal structure. Now, a machine cannot equate those without really a great degree of sophistication, but we provide that sophistication. So we give that semantic interoperability between health data and other areas of industry as well.
All right. Now, when we speak about telemedicine, I think the classic example is always that you have a patient who's lying in a hospital somewhere in Europe, has brain surgery, and somewhere in LA, some specialist is standing there and operating and doing the surgery through a wired internet connection, or not wired internet connection, maybe over 5G. I think that's kind of the classic example that everybody knows, everybody has seen. But it's much more down to earth also partly, just simply connecting rural areas. Very often you don't have any general practitioners anymore who would like to go to rural areas because it's not very attractive for sure. Just simply a question to you, Zohar, also. What can be done just to connect these rural areas through telemedicine so that they have a good coverage in medicine and that everybody can have also this good treatment at any moment?
So basically, we deal with it every day. We have a lot of rural areas in Israel, and many people, it's not very simple for them to go to a hospital if they need. But even for people who live in the main city, sometimes, for example, in the middle of the night, if the parents have a sick child and they don't want to go now to the hospital, to the ER in the middle of the night, we can have solutions for them that they can talk and consult a doctor in the home without going out. So we have several services like that. They are all free for the patients. And they can talk to a doctor. The doctor can give them a prescription that they don't need the paper. It's digital signed, and they can go directly to the pharmacy and buy the medicine. Also, the doctor can also decide to send them to the ER if necessary. And also, we have several services like dermatologist, for example, or pediatric. We have also something we call Taito, which is a small device that the parents can buy and keep in their home. And then if the child is sick, for example, the doctor can check the child when the doctor is in his office and the child is at home. The doctor can check the throat and check the ears and listen to the heart and to the lungs and do almost a full checkout for the child. So it's not just talking. He can really check the child and make an anamnesis. And we have also several things like pregnancy care. It's a small machine, a small device that the pregnant lady buys, and she can, in her home, make ultrasound for herself and see if there is anything wrong. Then a doctor will see it and decide what to do. We have everything from child development services. We have rehabilitation services. We use it for everything, for everywhere, and it's, of course, especially good for the people in the rural areas, in the faraway places, that they can get the same good medicine as anyone else living in the main city. Yeah.
You spoke a lot about a doctor. You can visit a doctor, which I would replace now by my doctor, for example. And that brings me also to the point, doctor-patient and doctor-to-doctor communication, because you might, in the middle of the night, have to speak to a doctor which is not your doctor, who doesn't know you. So how can we make sure also, Dermo, that all the information are centralized in a hyper-secured way and stored so that everybody can also access this information, those people who are authorized and who are needed to access this information?
Yeah, that's probably the major, I would say, concern in sharing of health data is security. So I come from the Republic of Ireland. The health service executive there was recently the victim of a cyber attack. So they were held to ransom for 20 million euros. That's the worst possible outcome you can imagine. And so you have to have a secure system which is, absolutely resistant to that. And should it become compromised, you have to be able to react incredibly quickly with a backup plan in order to not have your system compromised, your patient's data compromised. There was one case in that, what I just mentioned, they actually shared the health data of a person who was in palliative care just to prove what they had. And that's an absolutely nightmare scenario. So yeah, you really have to have a fortress system. There's no doubt about that. The technologies to be applied there, I would say, get the best in the market.
Now, coming back more to the topic also, what I mentioned at the beginning, surgery by telepresence. I see a huge opportunity, of course, that you have specialists all across the world, like in a conference. It's very similar to speakers, actually. You have top speakers. They are sitting in LA. They are sitting somewhere in Asia. They don't want to travel. They need to come here. Now, a conference is one thing, and I see already how difficult it is partly to have a good internet connection to have them speak. Now, if I imagine that someone would be sitting somewhere on the other corner of the world and perform brain surgery on me remotely, and all of a sudden the 5G connection is gone bust, how can we avoid such problems?
Well, you're right, of course, but it's possible because always there is a doctor standing next to the patient, and he uses the knowledge and the help of the doctor that is far away, remoted, and together they work the best way to make the best surgery. And we do it a lot, of course, because as you said, sometimes the best surgeon in the world in a very specific, difficult surgery is somewhere far away, and you want his advice and you want his help. And with the technology of today, sometimes the doctor can even surgeon himself using all kinds of robots and things like that. And I like it because it means that in every country, everywhere, everyone can get the help from the best surgeon in the world for his problem. So it makes the whole world like a global place that we can all use that great doctors.
So for the moment, as far as I understand, it's more just bringing the expertise in rather than having someone really manipulating the scissors on the patient itself. We had just, actually I was handling an event on Saturday for the British magnetic resonance radiographers, and it was quite interesting how far you can go with visualization of facial nerves, for example. There was also the example they were cutting out a tumor in the face and making sure that the facial nerve was not cut at this point. So is that a point where you see that we can have new technology analyzing the data which are collected real time, giving the expertise, giving the feedback, and guiding those people, the experts on site? Or do you see also that in maybe 10 years we're going to go steps further also by having the manipulation done also?
Of course, in 10 years, I can't even tell what is going to be, but even now we have the good technology to make all of this possible. The internet makes the photos or all the data so accurate. So the doctor that is far away can see very clearly everything that he needs, and sometimes, as I said, can even make the surgery himself with all kinds of robots. And it's just, even the photos are so accurate and make possible for the doctor to see exactly what he's doing, even if the smallest things in the surgery.
Damo, you mentioned before that sometimes the terms also unclear, chest pain, other medical terms for it. How can we really make sure that there is an understanding between all the different parties which are involved? Artificial intelligence, human factors in there. What can be done?
Honestly, it's a mixture of both, but I can tell you something quite definitely now. It cannot be done without artificial intelligence, and the reason is this. We can take COVID as an example. There was a tremendous global push to fight this virus, so an explosion of knowledge occurred around COVID itself. When you have an explosion of knowledge in any field of science or endeavor, you have new words or new terms, new things are understood, new ideas are put forward. You can't stop that. You can't stop that drive whereby we say, hang on, human knowledge, let's just stop a moment till we standardize everything. You basically have to align on the fly. So you need artificial intelligence in order to do that for what the AI can actually do. And for what it can't do, or where you really need that human touch, you need to bring in the human touch. And this is called having the human in the loop. But I can say quite concretely, going forward, you won't be able to do it without AI, or you simply won't be doing it. And actually, that's where we are at the moment. We have such a massive data in order to be aligned and to be shared, and we're behind on that. We don't have semantic interoperability, and we won't be able to achieve it without artificial intelligence either.
Zohar, last question to you to wrap up the session. Back to the roots, simply, how can you just, basic problem, how can you bring a general practitioner to use telemedicine? Because not everybody would like to do it. I know it from my general practitioner, he's not very happy doing this. So what can you tell to them to simply say, do it?
Well, first, I think that in this area, the COVID made a big change in telemedicine, because we are practicing telemedicine for 15 years already. And at the beginning, not many people wanted to use it, because as you said, some people, old people, or some people, they are afraid of technology. And we had to make a lot of efforts to convince them to use it. And also, sometimes we had to make a lot of efforts to convince doctors to use it, because many doctors said, this is not a good medicine, it is dangerous. A person must arrive to the doctor in person to see, so the doctor can see the person and check him. And then COVID-19 arrived, and people had no other choice than to use the telemedicine services, because this is the only one they could use. Everybody were in the isolation, in home isolation, and couldn't get out and go to the clinic. And then suddenly people start to understand that this can be very comfortable. You don't have to go look for a parking space and waste half a day to see a doctor. You can do it from your home. And then also the doctors start to realize that this is not as bad as they thought, and sometimes you can really talk to the person and see the problem and get making it possible. So, as I said, the COVID-19 helped, but also we teach people. We use all kinds of ways to teach even the elderly population how to use it. It's very, I always say that good internet is not enough. It's very important if you want to have a good telemedicine service, but everything you have to do to make it simple to the patient, to the customer. You have to explain very well what the patient's supposed to do, like down a special app or approve the video in your device and things like that. And if you do it right, sometimes it helps. Still, it is a big challenge, and we work for it every day and make a lot of efforts and try again and again. If a person try one consultation with a doctor that is successful, then the next time will be easier, and then from now on it will be okay. It's just a lot of work and time.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, our time is over. Could have gone on forever. Very interesting topic. Zohar, Dermo, thank you very much to both of you. Let's move now geographically a little bit. We went from Israel over Luxembourg. Now we're going to the high north, to Finland, with Antti Kaupin, the CTO of Aerialis Verkot from Finland, who's going to speak about a topic which is again very close to what we had now, because we had telemedicine. And if something goes wrong, what do you need then? For sure, emergency services. Antti, please tell us a little bit more how, if everything goes wrong, the first helpers can help me.
Yeah. Hello. Nice pronunciation of Aerialis Verkot. If you are not Finnish, you shouldn't try it. It's really difficult. Yeah. So I'm from Erillisverkot. It is a Finnish government-owned special purpose company that is, its roots are in critical communications, so we have Tetra network like here in Luxembourg. Now we are doing a lot more. We are doing cloud, situational awareness services, just so you know why I'm here. My topic today is about how to enable greater public safety with technology, well 5G obviously, given the topic of the day. Let's first see what that is made of. So, mission critical communications is basically the baseline. So 4G and 5G, those are actually the first generations to have priority preemption that public safety needs. So basically if there is congestion, consumers will have less service than otherwise, just to enable public safety. Now, when we are going 4G and 5G, what happens is that you can generate lots more data. You can absorb data from the field and you can also push it to the field, like video to the users in the field. For that, you need data centers and secure cloud to host all that data. Much of the public safety data is such that you cannot put it on a public cloud because it's so confidential, so you need a private cloud that you handle within your nation, within the national borders. You need algorithms to go through that data. There will be so much data that public safety generates that it's not possible for humans to go through it. And when fire rescue in Finland was asked a few years ago, actually that was my master's thesis, they were asked that why would you take broadband into operational use? They said that it's better situational awareness. And when we asked, what does it mean? They said, it means we need video and whatever is online in the internet, that might mean Twitter, no, probably not LinkedIn, but Facebook, Instagram. So whatever beneficial information there is somewhere, they want it. So, next slide. I think drones are a good example of public safety technology development. If you think about nowadays how drones work, there's one guy flying a drone, that is usually through Wi-Fi or something, connects the operator and the drone, and then it sends video back. Then another guy watches the video or it is viewed afterwards. Now, with 5G and regulation, you can have non-line of sight drones. So I have seen drone flown over 5G. It works well. I've actually heard that they tested it so that the operator was in one continent and the drone was in another continent, and it works fine. But that's not really what we are aiming for. What I'm really expecting is autonomous drones. So you can have a hive of drones. They are flying about, doing the mission that they have been tasked to do, and then they are generating lots of video, and that video then is reviewed by artificial intelligence. So basically what that needs, it needs 5G, it needs edge computing, and it needs artificial intelligence. So basically through these technologies, not only do we get better situational awareness, we can actually free human resources to do something more important, which is usually human interaction. A few years ago at Erillisverkot, we did an artificial intelligence strategy. And when we asked the end users, what do you need artificial intelligence for? They said two things. One was to reduce manual tasks. So typing out reports or filling forms. So rather than do that, they would actually like, for example, voice recognition to transcribe group communications into text already, so they wouldn't have to first do the mission and then type down what has been happening. Another one was to support decision making. So we have all this data that could support the decision making, but we don't have enough manpower to go through the data. So they want algorithms to go through the data, operational data, real time and historical data, then offer options and suggestions to the decision maker. We are not yet at that point that public safety actors would like artificial intelligence to make decisions for them. They wanted to help them and support them. If you look at the pictures here below, that guy is, one is flying a helicopter, another one is steering a boat. So basically, both have, I don't know, 10 or something screens in front of them. So Do you think they need more unstructured data in their view? Probably not. So all the data has to go through an algorithm, and the algorithm has to know which information is relevant to which operator at any given time. The problem is they can't do it themselves. Those are the red ones when we asked, why aren't you doing it yet? They don't know how, they don't know resources. And that needs a deeper public-private partnership on top of 5G, edge, and artificial intelligence. That is actually the HoloLens that you discussed here earlier. That picture is from Microsoft website, by the way. Before this COVID scenario, I was fortunate enough to travel quite a bit the world, and I asked around, what do you think that is the first 5G use case for public safety? And almost every time the response was augmented reality. Now, that isn't a sci-fi anymore as it was a few years ago. We all do remember the first goggles that were augmented reality goggles. They weren't really good. But if you look at this HoloLens technology, it's public information, it's in the internet that US Army has an agreement with Microsoft to deliver up to 220,000 HoloLens technology augmented reality headsets. So in my mind, that proves two things. One, technology is mature enough to be used, and two, it's so mature that it can be used even in hostile environment, which is good for public safety. So how do you do that? Again, what you need is public safety architecture, so you can have a fragmented ecosystem, and you can have edge computing. So you need 5G cloud, and again, artificial intelligence, because you need machine learning on the cloud to decide which information to project to the end user. So again, good example of how technologies are converging to support public safety. This is an actual live picture from Finland. It's a cross-operational scenario. There is a police car in the background, border guard helicopter, ambulance, and fire and rescue. This is the Finnish hostile environment. So it is a bit of a dilemma. At the same time, public safety wants state-of-the-art solutions. They want whatever technology there is in the market that can support them, but then they want it to be as robust at whatever they're using now as the legacy systems, which are quite robust. So it is a bit of a dilemma. Also, they want to generate lots of data, use the data, but they want the data to be secure. So it kind of limits the possibilities to harvest the benefits of, let's say, public cloud, for example. So it is really, really complex. To deliver that, we need 5G, cloud, and artificial intelligence. We need those dedicated portions of the network, and we need deeper public-private partnership to make it happen. I have one last thing to say before I end my presentation. When I was looking at the topic of my presentation, one thing came to my mind that you should not, those of you who are here are decision makers, you should not think providing portions of the network to public safety as giving away valuable assets, because I know this is the discussion in many countries, because, for example, frequencies and hence capacity is very, very expensive. You have to think of it as enabling greater public safety for us all. Thank you. I was going to leave that to the background, but this is better. Just give.
Thank you very much for your presentation. So it was quite enlightening what can be done today. You were speaking mostly now about enhancing an existing situation. I thought when you were talking, I thought about another use case, maybe also having totally autonomous devices going into safety or risk situations. I think about Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics is building a lot of robots which might, on a completely independent way, also go to risk areas where humans cannot go without being really in danger. Do you have any thoughts about also how 5G can influence this completely autonomous acting devices? How can this be influenced by 5G?
Yes, I think it requires 5G to do those. I know that in Finland, organizations are looking into how to utilize autonomous vehicles. It might be drones, ATVs, whatever. So if you look at drone, you might want to think of them as hive of drones. And then the management of that operation is done with 5G in the edge computing environment. So 5G is very much an enabler on how public safety can harvest the benefits of digitalization, and autonomous and robotics is strongly a part of that.
Now, especially a question for Finland. I mean, you're coming from a country which has always been at the forefront of technology. I mean, I remember my first cell phone was Ericsson, so it was clearly Finnish. We know very well that in exactly rural areas, we have quite a lot of white spaces still. How is the situation, especially now in Finland, with the connectivity? Can you be sure that you have always somewhere at least a decent basic connectivity?
Well, yeah, Finland is really difficult because in the northern parts and the eastern parts of Finland, we have 2 people living per square kilometer. So as a business case, it's not that good for commercial operators. Now we have the project going that is going to take us from Tetra to broadband, and we had a procurement for the radio access network service, and domestic operator Elisa won the contract, and they have agreed to build the same coverage as our current Tetra system, which is around, I think, 97% of geographical coverage. So think about those wide, sparsely populated areas and having 97% 4G and in future 5G coverage. So I think we are in an exceptionally good place in global comparison.
What is maybe what Finland is doing differently from other countries who struggle more about establishing this connectivity?
Do you mean what we are doing more than other countries?
More or better, let's say like this. Maybe let's rephrase the question. What can we, other European countries, what can we learn from your country how to do it better?
I think in Finland there has always been great trust among public safety actors. I guess Finland has been #1 when you are comparing how public safety organizations share information and do stuff together and how they utilize technology in that. So now we are trusting our commercial partners to deliver us the service. And then we have good regulator in Finland that is steering the market in good direction. And the government was willing to change the legislation, so at, may I say, quite rapid pace to make this all possible. So I think it's the Finnish trust among others, that's the key.
So you say that basically Finnish citizens trust more in the protection of the data, because I know very well from our neighbor country, from Germany, data protection is a very, very important topic also, and very often as soon as one initiative comes, a lot of people say, stop, data protection, we cannot do this. Is there a different mindset in Finland? Is there more trust, or does the government and the industry handle it maybe from a different way, or in a different way that instills more trust in these initiatives?
Well, I think what's happening in Finland that if we see a problem like rights of individual, we are trying to find together a way to work around that and not just take it as something that is going to benefit us or not make it possible for us to move forward. So we are trying to resolve those problems through cooperation and trying to not let it slow us down too much.
Very good to be inspired from. Thank you very much for your thoughts, for your inspiration. It was a pleasure, and now we can lead over actually seamlessly to the next speaker, because I must say the horror scenario is indeed what we just discussed also. Imagine you have somewhere a car accident and you say, good, I'm crawling out of my car, I'm a little bit injured, I now want to call an ambulance, and you don't have any connection. This is something which can happen very easily. I'm living here in Luxembourg, geographically absolutely in the center of Luxembourg, and just 2 or 3 kilometers away from me, there is a long road through the forest, which is pretty dangerous. And I know very well, if anything is happening there, there is absolutely no connectivity. I will have to walk for at least 1 kilometer to find any network, which is not something which is very pleasant, but I don't drive also every day now having the fear that something might happen. But still, I have the hope that this might change and might be improved. And that's why I'm also very happy to announce my next speaker, Peter Gradwell, the Chief Commercial Officer of Telet Research Limited from the UK. And he's going to speak about connecting rural communities. What can you do, especially with 5G, to bring connectivity to very small entities? What can you do to connect those who are typically not connected? So far, I hope he's connected as well.
Hello, Peter.
He's here.
You can hear me today?
I can hear you very well. The floor,
Lovely
the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. I don't want you to think about a car crash, Peter. I want you to think, everybody, about a beautiful English summer day in a lovely village. And I want to talk to you about the Chalk Valley, which is down near Salisbury. And if I push this button, I think you can now see a slide about Telet. And so Telet is a niche rural UK operator, which is running a live 4G and 5G network with a rural focus. And it was originally started by our founder, James Bodie, who spent his career in the UK Army and was used to putting up mobile phone networks. And he thought, maybe I could build my own mobile phone network in this valley where I have no mobile phone signal. Here we are. And this originally started as a research project and was awarded a large grant by the UK government as part of their 5G test and trials initiative. And we have now developed that and become a full mobile network operator. So we are now the 5th mobile network operator in the UK. We have our big friends, BT, EE, Vodafone, Three, and Telefonica, but we also have a small mobile phone network called Telet. And the real change that encouraged this and enabled this was a change in UK government rules for spectrum that allowed private networks and small networks to take spectrum. And firstly, our regulator has set aside some spectrum that we can use for our own networks, and that's particularly good spectrum for 5G. But we also have an opportunity to go along and we can say, in this valley where we've got no signal, the big operators are not using the signal that they got a license for at auction, so can we use that spectrum, please? And because we've got those two local and shared access spectrum regimes, we're able to change and build our own network. And so in the UK, many of you will be familiar, it's a big country, we have many rural places, of course, and so we have a lot of mast sharing that goes on. And the typical way to install a network is to put a big mast in. And normally we have 2 mast sharing arrangements in this country, so half the operators on each. In the more rural locations, we now have a government initiative called Shared Rural Network, which is encouraging 1 mast for everybody. And what Telet finds, and what we believe, is that to put big masts in rural locations is unwanted. They're expensive, they don't look very good. The way the British countryside works, too many little dips, the signal doesn't work. So we prefer to put a small cell, a very low-powered cell, in the location, and then we encourage operators, traffic, very international customers to roam into our small cell. And very complementary to the big operators. One, in the physical location, and 2, we have that they do not. So complementary. This is a book of £1 billion government approved coverage. So on the left is one, and on the right is 2027. The project is, of course, we hope. And you can see that even in 2027, after a huge subsidy, still be little bits of, there are still many spots and dips and valleys where there's good enough signal. And that's why we have an important role for community networks, community driven. Of course, we talked this morning already about the commercial challenge of deploying mobile networks in places. There's not enough people there, not enough services. And so we believe buying 3 services. 1, 5G fixed wireless access for people that are at home, need good quality internet connection where the fibre is not connected. Secondly, there are many commercial applications for private 5G. Farming, in industry, in public safety, as we've discussed. You can service all of these people and give them, really high speed services and connectivity connectivity to the cloud, which improves their operation. And then finally, having built the infrastructure, you can deliver cellular service and give people mobile airtime, ability to make phone calls and receive text messages. And so the Telet network has started to be deployed. I think we are now on 7 locations, some in the north, some in the south, our original projects, some we're doing in New Valley. And I'm just going to talk to you very quickly about 2 case studies and give you a sort of real practical examples of how this is making a difference. So the first is Stourhead. Stourhead is a traditional English mansion near the home of a popular UK bank since 1670, and it's now a location and a very popular site. But they the house in the village around mobile phone signal. We do have really internet access to that infrastructure, and the issue came to a head. The head of the family, there was an issue. The service didn't get backup to, and so deploying 2 small farm buildings, coverage on other, deliver a good quality service at the top right of the photo. The second, Welsh Valley, that Valley has no broadband, and it has a very, as you can see, in about the local authority agreed to subsidize bandwidth, but to a budget of £350,000, it's not to 5 deployment, 5 small on telegraph poles up this valley. Of course, there's a major house in the valley, with excellent connectivity. Now, the valley itself, residents will benefit of megabit speed for a very cost-effective. And finally, of course, challenges. And I think I really wanted to draw out in this conversation about the benefits of spectrum utilization. And now starting across Germany has some industrial spectrum available. We would certainly encourage Luxembourg innovation in terms of spectrum liberalization. We've also found the UK not ready for lots of
Peter, I hate to do this. I hate to have to interrupt you, but the connection is very bad actually, and we hear only half of what you're saying, unfortunately. Well, we're speaking about connecting tomorrow, so connecting tomorrow means that we still have a lot of problems to tackle. Unfortunately, I mean, your presentation is amazing, so we will see if we can find solutions that you're going to send us over, maybe a recorded version of your speech that we can publish afterwards, because we have been discussing in the preparations already with you, and it's a topic which is very, very interesting. Just exactly connecting those areas which usually would not be connected is a topic which is very interesting. I mean, luckily you were showing us a couple of things. I think we saw already certain things we understood. Much more things to be said. What was for me very interesting, just to recap from the discussion we had beforehand, is that there are possibilities, especially with 5G, just to connect very small entities with local 5G networks, not the big masts that we all know, those which are standing there very freely. No, but small things that you can put very easily on a church tower, for example, so that it covers a very small area, but giving the possibility also to people to connect where they usually would not be connected. This has, of course, with the connectivity also an impact on real estate prices. So far today, it becomes more and more, it becomes a problem that if you want to move somewhere where it's maybe nice outside, where you want to give your children the possibility to live in an environment which is more healthy, but you don't have a good connectivity, this is indeed something that will bring down the prices. 5G might help to remedy on this problem and to bring it back where you can say, yes, no matter where you are, you have a good connectivity. Now here in Luxembourg, we are maybe on the safe side, we are on the lucky side that we have a good connectivity. But if I look over to our German neighbors, I follow a little bit the evolution on a lot of places. You don't have for the moment a broadband internet connectivity. And that's a real problem. where I sincerely hope that this will be tackled now with 5G. I'm going still to give it a little bit more a try, maybe with Peter. Maybe we have now a better connection, better sound. Peter, can you just tell us a couple of things so that we can judge if your presentation can go ahead?
Well, I'm still here. I'm sorry you can't hear me very well.
Try again. It sounds better for me now. Let's give it a try to keep on going with the presentation. Maybe it will work.
Well, I think I am nearly finished, but what I would say is the key things that have helped in the UK are, one is spectrum liberalisation and enabling the operators and new operators to be created. And so changes by the regulator, changes in the legislation have all helped. We need to work with roaming agreements, we need to work with other mobile operators. The UK and the world is currently set up for large operators, not small operators, and so all of these things need to change. But I would just conclude, really, by, just come to the last slide, maybe it's not working. I would just conclude by saying that we have found a definite role for small cells mounted on community assets, improving connectivity and mobile services for residents and small businesses out in the countryside.
All right, it was much clearer now. I don't know what has changed. Maybe the connection was better simply, but do you have some closing remarks, something that you would like to communicate, some key message that you would like to communicate to the audience still?
The key message is that it's very challenging to build a community network. You need lots of different elements. The technology is very early, but there is a definite demand. And with change that we've seen in the last year, and particularly in the UK, I would encourage that change to occur in Europe as well, then it's definitely possible, and people should start building their own mobile networks because that allows them to take control of the connectivity that they have in place that's viable.
All right. Thank you very much. Very warm applause also for Peter. Sorry for the little underwhelming experience. But well, you have to live with it, so we are on a virtual level. Not everything is perfect, and sometimes things can go wrong. That's the truth, and that's also the reason, by the way, why we're here together, to hear and to find solutions for that, so that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, things like this will not happen anymore. It's a work in progress, but nevertheless, let's take it as an example and also an encouragement to go on and to make it a little bit better. This brings me also to the end of this first morning that we had. The day is by far not over, but if I look back now, it was quite a lot. So we had the introduction remarks of Xavier Böttler, of our Prime Minister, who introduced a new initiative of the government. He outlined what has to be done to connect everybody. We had the European Commission speaking. We had regulators speaking. We had the automotive industry speaking. It was quite a very broad topic. We spoke about telemedicine, and we covered so many different topics already, only in one morning. Thank you very much for your attention, first of all. As I said, the morning is over, but the day for sure is not over, and the conference is absolutely also not over yet. We have now, right after the lunch break at 2 o'clock, we're going to kick off the different workshops which are taking place here, partly physical, partly also virtually. Just use them, enjoy them, learn, discuss with the people, and just enjoy simply being in an environment where there is so much news, so many things that we can see in what direction the journey will go. And then, of course, tomorrow morning we're going to kick off with the next day, with the second day of the conference, with a lot of speakers, a lot of panel discussions as well. This said, I cannot do much more now today than to thank you for your patience, be it those who were in the room itself in the Lux Expo, but also, of course, especially those who are connected virtually, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you now a good rest of the next day. And as we have to say today, stay safe, take care of yourself, and take care also of those around you. Thank you very much.